Hey, what's up, guys? Gonz here for the Face Like the Sun YouTube channel. I'm really pumped to let you guys know that I'm going to be on Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis tonight as a guest. I got in contact with the producer of the show, and Clyde wanted to have me on to discuss the recent Paris events after watching my YouTube video on it. So I'll leave a link in the description section, or you can go to groundzeromedia.org. The show is on from, I believe, 7 to 10 p.m. Pacific time, and I think I am supposed to be on around 8 p.m. So look for that, and I'm going to try to maybe post the audio from it tomorrow. And just some thoughts after this weekend of seeing all the information come out. I've been sorting through articles and comments and YouTube videos and Facebook posts and just the whole reaction of the masses of this event. And something struck me. I had a comment in my last video about the Paris attacks, and it had to do with somebody in Mexico, and he said, you know, people get killed in masses all the time down here, but nobody in the world cares. And that struck a nerve with me, and I know that to be true. So putting that into perspective, when we start looking at something like the Paris attacks, it's quite clear, in my opinion, that what we're seeing is deliberate in a sense, because the culprit behind this event, whoever it may be, and there's lots of opinions of who it is, must know that it will cause a reaction, a social reaction, as well as perpetuate their agenda. I might talk about this tonight when I'm actually on Ground Zero, but something that came to me was this idea of trauma-based mind control. You know, trauma-based mind control is, in general, this isn't any kind of doctrine of trauma-based mind control or anything, but this is looking at trauma-based mind control from the perspective of satanic ritual abuse. There's three basic steps or procedures here. First off is the trauma. You apply the trauma, which can be anything. It can be the terrorist attacks, or it can be 9/11, or it can be whatever. Something that causes trauma. And this happens to all of us, but the satanic trauma-based mind control element is a little bit more deliberate and more disturbing when you start looking into the history of it. But I'm applying this to the greater sort of sociological perspective of this. But before I get into that, you apply the trauma, number one. Number two, that trauma splits a person's personality. And then number three, there are certain demonic entities or fallen spiritual entities that get assigned to those split personalities so that they are hidden in sub-personalities. And that's why Russ Dizdar talks about the Black Awakening and things like that, is because they have assigned demons and fallen spirits to sub-personalities of many people out there. And there can be deliverance from that. Satanic ritual abuse is a real thing, and Jesus Christ can free you from that. And, you know, if you're looking for freedom and if you are a victim of satanic ritual abuse, know that Jesus Christ can deliver you from that. And there are plenty of ministers out there who can help you through that. But let me apply that to the greater sociological perspective here. First off, apply the trauma. Well, we saw it in 9/11. We're seeing it again here, the Paris attacks, in the sight of the world, you know, because it's a Western nation. The world at large knows about Paris, and if anything happens to this scale, the people of the world, especially the West, will hear about it, they'll know about it, they'll respond to it. So there you go, you got your trauma. Then you have your split personalities. There is a huge blame pie happening, okay? Blame ISIS, blame religion, blame terrorism, blame climate change. Bernie Sanders says blame climate change because climate change has to do with this too. Blame the government intel like CIA, Mossad, Vatican, Freemasons, right? Like I talked about in the last video, which can be sourced back to whatdoesitmean.com and the Sorcha Fall as reported to her Western subscribers, which is kind of a weird, I can't vet this exactly. And so, you know, that's what the source of that article was. And a lot of people are jumping on this idea that it was, you know, intel. But I'm not stepping away from that necessarily. And I'm not saying that that's not the case, because there are declassified government documents that state that the CIA has been behind certain things like the creation of ISIS or assist in the creation of ISIS. So I'm not denying that stuff. But what I'm saying is that there's a blame happening. There's a split of personalities happening here. Different groups are being blamed for this terrorist attack, right? At the individual level, what happens to those people who have those split personalities? They get something called DID, dissociative identity disorder. And when you look at DID, it's the same thing as multiple personality disorder, okay? And The way WebMD describes the symptoms is, quote, DID is characterized by the presence of two or more distinct or split identities or personality states that continually have power over a person's behavior. With dissociative identity disorder, there's also an inability to recall key personal information that is too far-reaching to be explained as mere forgetfulness. With DID, there's also highly distinct memory variations which fluctuate with a person's split personality. The alters or different identities have their own age, sex, or race. Now, I think you get the point of what DID is. And if you think about that, what have we seen in response to this alleged terror attack? Yeah, okay, the split personalities in terms of the different factions being blamed, but also those groups that are rising up to say they're waging war against it. You have Anonymous saying they're waging war on ISIS, Pope Francis suggesting this is part of World War III, Obama continuing to say it's ISIL, warnings of those who say beware of the right-wing extremists who can increasingly have justification to conduct retaliation through Europe and the Middle East against these groups. So as you can see, there are different identities being raised up, and each of those identities, I believe, are being controlled by some sort of principality or power that has been either assigned to them purposefully or have been accepted through various rituals or whatever to fight against each other. This is the chaos that the New World Order has been trying to create, because without the chaos, there can be no quote-unquote order. So that's just kind of a basic overview of my thoughts and my thought process this morning as I saw all the, again, Facebook posts, YouTube videos, articles being shared, people commenting all over the place and trying to pin down exactly what happened, but also who's behind it. And ultimately, I always go back to this idea, and it'll come up tonight for sure, because Clyde's been talking about this Hydra or this octopus where there's a head and the arms with many tentacles in various aspects. The head here, I think, is non-human. It is a spiritual entity known as the Fallen One or Satan or the adversary. He's the one that's orchestrating this massive deception, because remember, human beings, for the most part, unless they've already injected themselves with some sort of synthetic or animal DNA or something like that, humans, for the most part, are still made in the image of God. We are still human beings in the sense that we are all sort of brothers and sisters on this planet, right? Well, unless there is a spiritual deception, a trick on the mind, a terrorism of the intellect, we wouldn't be trying to kill each other over any kind of ideology, which means that, again, there is a deception. Something is covering the eyes of human beings at a massive scale, and the puppeteer at the very top, I think, is not just human. I think it's non-human. It's a non-human intelligence. Simply put, it is Satan, the fallen one, the devil, if you will. And so that's kind of the direction I want to take it. Of course, I will still discuss, the nitty-gritty details of various things, like, for example, the names of the meanings of the locations in this Paris attack that have some interesting connotations or things associated with it, especially the theater. So I'll get into all that tonight. But let me know your thoughts on this stuff as well, because I'm curious to hear what you think about my whole little rant here. And just as promised also, I did choose 3 comments, and I wrote them a little note asking for their address and stuff to send them a book. I'll talk about that a little more in tomorrow's video, and what mini documentary anyway, that I plan to make in the next few months here. And so look out for that tomorrow. I will say that a lot of things that people wanted me to talk about in this next documentary that I asked you guys, what should I make it on? A lot of it I've already done in Age of Deceit, Fallen Angels, and the New World Order, and Age of Deceit 2, Alchemy, and the Rise of the Beast Image. So if you haven't seen those videos, check it out. I'll have cards showing on the top right here or links in the description section. But let me know what you guys think about the whole Paris rant. And, I may or may not, I don't know. I'll decide maybe in a few hours if I'll live stream my end of the conversation on YouTube here with Clyde Lewis. It'll depend on how I can get some of the technology working in terms of not just the live stream, but they want to do it on a landline. So if I can hook up the landline to the YouTube channel and do that whole thing, if I can figure out the technology, I might do that. So keep me in prayer about tonight. I'm really excited to go on. I know there's a lot of listeners of Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis, so I'm stoked about it. And I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Hope you guys have an awesome day, and check out Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis tonight. I'll be on at 8 p.m. Pacific time. God bless, guys.